There's a stadium in Los Angeles that opened in 1923. It hosted the Olympics in 1932, then again in 1984. Now, in 2028, it's going to do something no other stadium in history has ever done: host the Olympics for a third time. But there's a problem that the stadium doesn't fit the Olympic track anymore. Let me tell you about a stadium that refuses to die. The Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum has been standing in the same spot since 1923. That's over 100 years of history packed into one building. It's hosted two Olympic Games already, once in 1932 during the Great Depression, then again in 1984 when the whole world was watching. And now, it's about to host the 2028 Summer Olympics. No other stadium on Earth has done this. Not even close. But here's the crazy part. The stadium doesn't actually work for the Olympics anymore, not in its current form. The track and field area doesn't fit the requirements. The football field is in the way. Everything is configured wrong. So how do you fix a 100-year-old stadium to host the biggest sporting event in the world? And why not just build something new? The Coliseum wasn't originally built for the Olympics. It was built as a memorial to soldiers who died in World War I, a way to honor veterans. But from the very beginning, it became so much more than that. The stadium was huge, one of the largest in the entire United States. It could hold massive crowds. It became the center of sports and entertainment in Los Angeles. Then, in 1932, Los Angeles got picked to host the Summer Olympics. This was during the Great Depression. Money was tight everywhere. People were struggling. But the city decided to go forward with the games anyway. The Coliseum became the main venue. Opening ceremonies, closing ceremonies, track and field, everything important happened there. And it worked. The Olympics put Los Angeles on the map as a major global city. Not just some town in California, a real player on the world stage. 52 years later, the Olympics came back to Los Angeles. 1984. The Coliseum was still standing, still huge, still important. Once again, it hosted the opening and closing ceremonies. Once again, it was the center of everything. Athletes from all over the world competed on that track. The 1984 Olympics were special for another reason. They actually made money. Most Olympic Games lose money. Cities go broke building new stadiums they'll never use again. But Los Angeles did it differently. They used existing venues. They didn't build a bunch of stuff they didn't need. And the Coliseum proved it could handle the biggest event in sports. Twice. Now, we're in 2026, and the 2028 Olympics are just 2 years away. Los Angeles is hosting again. And once again, the Coliseum is at the center of the plan. But there's a major problem this time. The stadium has changed a lot since 1984. Back in the early 1990s, they did major renovations to make it work better for professional football. They lowered the field. They widened it. They changed the whole layout. These changes were great for football, but they destroyed the space needed for an Olympic running track. A regulation Olympic track is 400 meters around. It needs a specific amount of space. The current setup at the Coliseum doesn't have that space anymore. So what do? Build a completely new Olympic stadium somewhere else? That would cost billions of dollars. And after the Olympics, what would you do with it? It would just sit there empty, wasting money. Los Angeles decided to do something different. Something nobody's really tried before at this scale. They're going to temporarily transform the Coliseum back into an Olympic stadium, then change it back when the games are over. Here's how they're doing it. They're building a massive temporary platform right over the existing football field. This platform will be elevated, raised up on thousands of support columns. On top of this platform, they'll install a brand new 400-meter Olympic track, regulation size, meets all the requirements. The whole thing is incredibly complex. The platform has to be strong enough to support thousands of people, athletes running at full speed, camera equipment, broadcast towers, everything. But it also can't damage the stadium underneath, because after the Olympics end, they're taking the whole thing apart. Every single piece gets removed. The platform, the track, all the support columns, everything goes away, and the stadium goes back to being a football venue. It's temporary, but it has to be perfect. The timeline for all of this is incredibly tight. The Olympics start in July 2028. Track and field events happen right after the opening ceremonies. There's no room for delays or mistakes. Because the elevated track covers the entire football field, there's a big problem for the stadium's main tenant. The USC Trojans football team plays their home games at the Coliseum. They've been there for decades. But in 2028, they won't be able to play there. The installation of the Olympic track takes too long, and removing it after the games takes even longer. It interferes with the entire football season. So USC is moving temporarily to SoFi Stadium, the massive new NFL stadium in Los Angeles. They'll play their home games there for one season while the Olympics take over the Coliseum. It's a huge disruption, but it shows just how serious the Olympic conversion is. During the 2028 Olympics, the Coliseum will host track and field events, all the running races, hurdles, long jump, high jump, pole vault, shot put, discus, javelin. All of it happens at the Coliseum. It'll also host the Paralympic track and field events after the main Olympics end. But the opening and closing ceremonies, those are being split between the Coliseum and SoFi Stadium. This is actually pretty smart. SoFi is this brand new, ultra-modern stadium with a massive roof and all the latest technology. The Coliseum is historic and iconic. By using both venues, Los Angeles is connecting its past to its future. Old meets new. History meets innovation. One of the biggest reasons Los Angeles is doing it this way is sustainability. Most Olympic host cities make the same mistake. They build a bunch of new venues specifically for the games. Stadiums, swimming pools, velodromes, all kinds of stuff. The Olympics come and go in 2 weeks. Then all those brand new buildings just sit there, empty, costing money to maintain, serving no real purpose. It's wasteful, environmentally, financially, every way you look at it. Los Angeles decided to do the opposite. Use what you already have. Don't build new stuff unless you absolutely have to. The Coliseum renovation is a perfect example. Instead of building a brand new Olympic stadium that would cost billions and have no use after the games, they're temporarily adapting an existing venue. After the Olympics, the Coliseum goes right back to being a college football stadium. It hosts concerts, other sporting events. It stays useful. No wasted money, no abandoned buildings, just smart planning. The Coliseum already went through major upgrades recently. In 2019, they finished a massive renovation project. New premium seating, luxury suites, better concourses, upgraded press facilities, all the modern stuff people expect. That renovation cost hundreds of millions of dollars. But it was worth it because the stadium stays relevant. It can host big crowds, handle modern broadcasting needs, compete with newer venues. Those 2019 upgrades laid the groundwork for the Olympic conversion. The stadium was already modernized in most ways. Now they just needed to solve the track problem, and the temporary elevated platform solves that without destroying all the work they'd already done. When the 2028 Summer Olympics begin, the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum will make history. It'll become the only stadium in the world to host 3 Olympic Games. No other venue comes close. Think about what that means. This building has survived over 100 years. It's adapted to different sports, different eras, different technologies, and it's still standing, still relevant, still important. The temporary track system doesn't try to turn the Coliseum into something it's not. It doesn't erase the history. It doesn't pretend to be a brand new stadium. Instead, it allows the Coliseum to be what it was always meant to be, a place where history happens, where the world comes together, where athletes compete at the highest level. For a few weeks in 2028, the stadium will look and feel like an Olympic venue again, just like it did in 1932 and 1984. Then when the games end, it'll change back, ready for the next chapter. Not many buildings get to do this. Most stadiums get torn down after 30 or 40 years. They become outdated, too expensive to maintain. Cities build replacements and forget about the old ones. But the Coliseum keeps going. It keeps finding ways to stay relevant. Part of that is location. Los Angeles is a major city, always has been, always will be. The stadium sits in a prime spot and serves a real purpose. Part of it is design. The basic structure was built to last. Solid concrete, simple but effective layout. It's not fancy, but it works. And part of it is just luck, the right decisions at the right times, renovations that kept it useful without destroying what made it special. When you walk into the Coliseum today, you're walking through history. Athletes who competed there in 1932 are long gone, but their spirit is still there. The track they ran on, the field they competed on, the same basic structure. Then the 1984 generation added their own memories. Carl Lewis winning gold medals, Joan Benoit winning the first women's Olympic marathon, moments that defined a generation. And soon, in 2028, a whole new generation of athletes will create their own history on a temporary track built over a football field in a stadium that's over 100 years old. It's beautiful when you think about it, history repeating itself, but never quite the same way twice. The Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum renovation for the 2028 Olympics isn't about building something new. It's about honoring something old while making it work for today. Los Angeles chose reuse over replacement, adaptation over demolition, legacy over novelty. When the world tunes in to watch the Olympics in 2028, they'll see a stadium that's been there before, that knows what it's doing, that's earned its place on the global stage. And after the games end, After all the temporary structures come down, the Coliseum will still be standing, ready for whatever comes next. Because that's what it does. It survives. It adapts. It endures. The story that began in 1923 isn't over yet. It's still being written, and the 2028 Olympics will add the most remarkable chapter yet. What do you think? Should more cities follow LA's example and reuse existing stadiums instead of building new ones? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this story fascinating, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about the stadiums and venues that shape our history.